everyone for coming. It's nice to see the familiar faces here. Our speaker today, as you all know, is Dr. Maresh-Fuehrer. Michelle actually was a graduate here, or was her undergrad, and then she stepped away from the university to get her master's and doctorates. Was it at Nebraska? Nebraska, yeah. So we are so blessed to have her here. She brings a wealth of energy. She's so involved on campus with all the student organizations, staff, and faculty. So we have a lot to learn from her and how to keep us engaged on campus. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Michelle.
Hey, thank you. I'm not sure how close this needs to be, so I'm just going to hold it. But thanks for coming. When I was asked to come today to speak about student engagement in large classrooms, I got really excited, specifically because this is something that I feel that I'm pretty decent at. And so I want to share some of the things that I've learned teaching larger classrooms, especially because I teach communication courses. And if you know anything about communication courses, we've all probably taken public speaking. That's the largest class we ever had. Usually communication courses are about 25, 30 people. So when I was faced with a classroom of 100 in the spring, I was a little bit nervous about it, but I decided to road test some things and see, what I could do. And so I'm excited to share some of that stuff with you today. How many of you brought your cell phone with you? Anybody? Okay, if you have access to text messaging and are willing to participate, I would love for you to text message the answer to this question up here. So the way that you'll do it is the phone number you are texting is 37607. And then when you type your answer, type 96608 space and then whatever your answer is. So the instructions are kind of up here.
So you can do it, can I send it through the web by the HTTP?
Yes, if you do it that way, you can do it through your computer. So all I want to know is how many students are typically in your large classes that you teach.
So you, so like the phone number per se is like, versus a message to?
Yeah, the 37607 is the phone number.
And, sorry.
And then you text the numbers, text that number?
Text that number, space, whatever your answer is.
Oh, space.
And the other one, so I'm sending an email message to that address.
Well, you'll log on to the website, that http://colev.com, and then in there you'll just type 96608 space your message. And I'll wait for just a second.
We don't teach
Something's
class
happening. All right. We've
Yeah,
got
that was
75.
Yeah.
Oh, it's using online message.
Brandon, have you 75?
That would be 22.
Oh gosh, see, I'm on TV.
25.
I keep messing it up.
It's kind of fun because as you're doing this in real time, people's responses are popping up and you're getting a text message, which who doesn't love to do that? Got 65. You don't know who sent what. It's completely anonymous. You just see how long ago it was sent and what they wrote.
This feels like The Price is Right. I'm bidding, and it's like, who just bid low?
Well, as you're playing, this is kind of a tool that I really have enjoyed and embraced using. It's completely free to use. Of course, the more responses that you want, you could buy a bracket. You could, about $10 a year would get you enough for, 200 people in a classroom to respond to this. And it's a great way of embracing, their weapon and using it against them. So I don't like to tell my students don't text message in class. I feel like they are the type of people that when I say don't do it, they're going to do it just to see why they shouldn't do it, right? Kind of like a little kid. And so I tell them, cool, you can text message in class, but you're going to text message to me, and you're going to tell me stuff. And so this can be embedded into a PowerPoint slide or a Keynote slide if you use a map, and it actually becomes one of the slides. So frequently throughout the presentations that I do with a PowerPoint or Keynote, I insert a slide like this and hurry up and take a quick survey of the class. It doesn't have to be open-ended text like this, although sometimes I will do this and say, what questions do you have right now? and they can type a question that they have without feeling embarrassed about asking something in front of the whole class because it's completely anonymous. You can also do it like a poll. How many of you believe this? Or, what do you think the right answer is? And it kind of pops up. So it's sort of like interactive with the clicker technology, but it's free, and as long as they have text messaging, they can use it. Or a computer if they don't have text messaging. So I just wanted to do this to kind of give you an example of a really cool tool that will engage people. They have a lot of fun typing stuff in, and I haven't had any problems with immaturity, like typing something up there that doesn't belong up there. I don't think our students are like that. And so just kind of an idea. Yes.
So if you have 200 students, what does that look like?
It flows pretty quickly depending on how many people are there, but once it stops, you can scroll up and down and go through it very easily. It will add the little scroll bar there. There weren't enough of us free to actually see that quick interaction, but it does become very manageable. It's not a problem at all. So today, that's just one example of a strategy that I'm going to kind of show you that you can use. I'm going to try not to go over the typical things that we hear about, like the minute papers or the muddiest point, and instead I'm going to try to tell you some things that I think helped make me really successful in my class. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that course. Like I said, in spring 2012, which just wasn't that long ago at all, I was surprised to have 100 students enrolled in my comp theory course. Every time I've taught it, it's been 40 students, and so to walk into a cap of 100 was a little bit nuts. It's communication theory, so typically I don't want to diss my discipline, but it's the boringest class that we offer, right? It's theory. Students don't like theory, they don't like the word theory, but to engage them, it's a challenge with theory. So I think it's a great class to road test some of these ideas in. And on my student evaluations, the comments were very, very positive, and it led to a teaching excellence award at the end of the semester. So I was really happy to see that. There's a sampling of some of the comments up here on the screen. Some of the things that they said that specifically pertain to what I was trying to do. The small breakout sessions were lots of fun. I'll tell you about that in a second. It was fun and I learned. Learning all the theories with applied real life aspects. Open learning experience in the class. Everyone was able to participate and talk about the theories. That's an important question because everyone was able to participate. How often do you hear that with a large setting? It's difficult to achieve, and so it's something I'm very proud of. I'm glad we got to present them in our own words and ability. I like how interactive you were with the students. It's one of the best comm classes I've taken. I learned a lot. And so I think that some of these strategies could be very helpful and useful to you guys as well. So I'm going to take a brief moment. In my perspective, to engage students in a large course, you really have to understand the student. How can you understand how to motivate them and move them to participate if you just don't know what they're like? And so I'd like to take a brief moment just to show you a really cool YouTube video that I found that kind of embraces the idea of what today's student is and what we're faced with.
Michael Wish made this, our speaker,
Really?
in January. This is his video.
important to understanding when you're teaching a large class is just that students know technology. Today's students are experts in this. They've been doing it since they were little. My students know more about technology than I do, and I used to think I was pretty good at it. And so when I sit there and watch some of the things that they can create, I'm really amazed by it. And so what that means in terms of engagement is, when you want to be a great instructor, we have to look like we know what we're doing, right? We have to be credible. And so if we're fumbling with technology and things aren't working right, and we're hitting the key over and over and over again, and things are just getting worse, it loses them. So that's number one step to reducing that engagement is not using your technology properly. They also expect to use technology quite a bit. They want to have their laptop in class. They want to be text messaging. They want to have their iPad. And so to me, it's not a factor of taking that away from them. It's a factor of using it and turning it into a learning tool. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Another thing about today's students is they multitask in ways that some of us just can't even imagine. I like to put myself into this category. I'm on the brink of today's students, sort of. I'm 28 years old, and so I'm not super far removed from that technology base. And I just the other day posted a Facebook message because I was doing 9 things at once, right? I was listening to music, I was Facebooking a friend, I was reading the chapter that I was going to teach that night in class, making my PowerPoint slides, grading papers, and doing something else at the exact same time, and it all got finished on time, and it was great. And so that's today's student. They can do that. And so when you take those little multitasking things away from them, they get bored. And it's nothing against you as an instructor standing up here. It's not that what you have to say isn't valuable or that it's not interesting. It's just their little brains are moving and they need something for stimulation. And so you have to kind of break up that monotony of just talking to them and let them do stuff. Let them get out of their seats. Let them do a text message up to the poll site like I showed you. Just let them, get that out of them, that energy that they have. Another thing too is they're so used to being in constant contact. They've had Facebook and MySpace before that and Twitter on there, and it constantly updates, and they know what everybody's doing and where everybody's at. And so that kind of changes the dynamic of what they expect in terms of engagement in the classroom as well. They expect to be in contact and to communicate with people. Very rarely is the student satisfied with just kind of sitting in the back row and not talking. There are shy people that feel that way, right? But if you could get them talking and get them engaged in something with each other and then bring it to the larger scale class, they're going to enjoy that much more. And then another thing is, as you can see by the video, they care about the world around them. Today's student is so interested in the community. I teach mostly public relations courses, and a topic that comes up in there pretty often is corporate social responsibility, right? So an organization feeling that they are responsible for doing something in the community that's going to better the community. That's the unit they always write as their favorite. They love talking about community issues and public issues and things that are going to shape the world around them. That's what they care about. They know there's problems in the world and they want to solve them. So they really like when you can connect your course to saying, hey, I know I just told you the concepts, but let's talk. How are you going to use this in your real life? How does this affect what's going on in the world around you? That will stimulate a discussion like no other. I've had so much fun doing that. And so it's not just telling them the tools they need, but making them really think on their own about how they can use those tools is something that's really important. So the research, just to kind of back up some of the things I'm saying, the research shows that students sometimes struggle with large lectures, especially nowadays. In my field of communication, we have a division in instructional communication, which is what my PhD is in. And instructional communication research has gone from saying that large lecture is the thing to do to pretty much saying it's not as effective to do anymore. And so it doesn't mean that it can't be effective, but the old traditional view of teacher stands up here at podium, talks to students, and class is over, and there's TAs that circulate and help, is kind of an outdated model, but a lot of us feel attached to that because that's what we know and that's what we've done. And so you have to consider some of the things that research is finding is not as effective and why it's not as effective, which is that lack of interaction. Again, we just said they crave it. They're used to being in constant contact. All of a sudden you sit them there quietly in a seat and all they have to do is listen. They can't speak, they can't do, or if they want to, they have to raise their hand and ask a question formally. It just doesn't fit that model that they're used to. Also the lack of engagement of learning styles. You might show a video, you might communicate with them, but then where's the hands-on? Where's the, the text kind of stuff? And so trying to engage all those learning styles sometimes gets lost in that model. And sometimes they feel like they just sit there, they take in the concepts, they take a test on them, and it's over. And that might be in a course that they're required to take for their degree plan, and it's not something related to their major. And so they really feel like there's no critical thinking there for them, or there's no way to view how this actually impacts them. None of that may be true by the way we feel when we're up in the front of the room, but there are things we can do to make them see that that's not true either. So some lessons that research can tell us from my discipline is that the first 5 minutes of your class are critical to student engagement. So if you come in here, you don't make eye contact, you set up your thing, and then you start going, you kind of already lost them. You know, you've got to find a way to quickly get their attention, just like a public speech, and get them doing something. So maybe it's come sit down and you know there's a poll up on the screen, or come get in groups, figure out what questions you still have about last week, and then a representative from your group tells me, I go over them with you, and then we continue into the material. At least you woke them up a little bit. It's not that routine of sit and listen, sit and listen. Another lesson we know is students learn better when they have the real world application. I think there's even a question on our student evaluation instrument that asks how well they got to apply this to their real lives. And that's not very hard for us to do. We know, we teach it. So we just have to kind of tell them, and it's even better if you challenge them to figure it out themselves and communicate it to you. That application will create great retention of the material. If they know how it's operating, they'll know. I'll give you a great example from my communication theory class. I decided to tell them we are going to have a little fun with violations, expectancy violations theory. I want you to go to the elevator, everybody go to a different elevator on campus, and I want you to get in the elevator with someone you don't know and bother them. You know, get in their face, stare at them, get real close to them. Don't do anything bad, but you know, just make them uncomfortable a little bit, right? They came back to the class when we took that test. That was the theory everybody knew, because they got to go bother somebody and they saw exactly how it worked. They were using the terminology like threat threshold valence, which they never do, and it was just really fun. So when you show them, you know, that this stuff does apply every day, it just helps them learn it better. Also, research is showing that relationships are important. Obviously, teacher-student relationship, or the perception of that relationship, is important. I do a lot of research on that specifically because I do feel that we're kind of in a relationship with each other. And so things that would happen in a romantic relationship, like for instance, hurting someone's feelings, or having a conflict and needing to resolve it and keep trust at the same time, are all still kind of in that relationship. And so I try to look at how can we create a good relationship with people in a big room. It's very, very difficult to do, but it is possible to do. I don't know if you noticed that slide where I put some snippets of the eval comments, but someone said not every professor knows all of our names. Yes, I learned all 100 of their names. And the way that I did it, it really wasn't rocket science. It was a matter of every week putting them into a small group, and while they were working in their small groups, circulating, and maybe meet one person and have them tell me something about themselves. And you know, you don't have to know all of them like that. It was kind of fun, but I only had one class like that, so it was easier. You don't have to learn all of their names, but showing that genuine interest. Like, let's find something in common, or you know, let's find a way to trust each other. It just fixes the energy in the room. Everybody feels that. Another thing too is if they feel like they don't participate very much, it's hard for you to know if they understand the material, for one, but they don't feel like they have any ownership in that classroom. One of the principles I teach in public relations, which also applies to teaching, is in public relations, I tell everybody, the purpose is if you make people feel like they were part of something, you build that relationship with them, they trust you. So Lay's Chips right now has a thing going on Facebook where you could create a chip flavor, and there was like bacon cheddar ranch and all this kind of stuff, right? They're posting that on Facebook. How often do people post chip flavor ideas? You know, like this was because they felt like they were part of this. They're voting on this. They're creating this. So you have to kind of create that same thing in the classroom. You have to make them feel a sense of ownership and pride in this large room, which isn't the easiest thing to do, but you can do it by making them have tasks or roles that are specially theirs, or knowing you're always going to talk in a group, and then I want to hear from you. You know, I want one representative from each group to tell me what you guys came up with. Let's write the list on the board and let's talk about it. You know, it's a lot of fun, and it breaks up that talking again. And it helps you see if they even understand what's going on. So here are some of the strategies that I think are just like the top 7 of ways to engage. And I'll give you some examples of each one. One is you can't expect them to do it without telling them that you expect that, right? So when you set the expectation from day 1, they know, okay, this is going to be expected of me, I have to do it. So obviously include it in your syllabus in some way. Maybe give it a one of the ways that I did the participation grade in my 100-person class was I had little ticket stubs like you get at the carnival or the fair, and every time someone talked, I gave them a stub and they had to write their name on it, and then they turned in the stubs, and there were little prizes for, X amount of stubs. So if you turned in 10 the first month, you might get an extra 2 points on your quiz. If you got 50, you didn't have to take one quiz. It was dropped, or your highest grade carried twice. It doesn't hurt anything to help them with one grade, right? But it gave them something to want to participate for and a reward for doing it. And before I knew it, pretty much everybody was collecting tickets, at least throughout the week or throughout, the couple of weeks it was scattered and everybody was getting it. Another thing I like to do, I learned this as part of my relationship studies, right, is that imagine you're in a romantic relationship with someone and you're just going throughout your days and you never tell that person you appreciate them or that you care about them or what they think. Don't feel weird, right? Like, you want to feel valued, you want to feel respected, you want to know that you matter. Why not communicate that to this large class? I do that on the first day. I know we're a huge class, 100 people, it's never happened before for a common theory class, but I care about every single one of you as individuals. I care about your learning. I don't want this to become a distance thing where you don't know me and you never see me. I still want to know about you. Tell me something about you, or what's going on in the world that you're interested in. And just every day, or every once a month or something, reiterate that fact that you do care and that you don't think they're just a herd of cows sitting there and they're going to, shuffle out at the end of the semester. Like, they're not a number. You care about them. The second one is reducing anonymity. One of my students' favorite things is self-disclosure. Common theory, it's a lot easier to self-disclose maybe than, say, a history course or something like that, but I'll connect the theory to my personal life. I'll tell them stories about old dates that I had that went bad, or, just something about my weekend. A lot of times we're busy. We're doing research, we're teaching, we're doing everything. Tell them that, you understand them more when they tell you what's going on in their world. So you tell them, like, hey, this morning I had a cool presentation with, a group of faculty, and I got to talk about this, that, and the other. What are some cool things that you guys did? And so that just reduces that barrier of you are the sage that comes in and knows everything and doesn't care and leaves, You don't want that. It's okay to be a sage, but you don't want that perception about you. Physically moving closer, getting in there, making every third row blank so you can come around and be near them. That's kind of typical during lecture, but I like to break them up into groups and go meet with each group, or as many groups as I can, to kind of circulate. That reduction of distance reduces that anonymity of you being this entity. Do you have a question?
Oh, no.
Okay. I didn't want to leave you out if you did. So my number 3 is the scary one. It's lecture less. And I understand the power of lecture because you are in control, you can structure things, you can spend as much time as you need to on certain things. I completely get it, but they sometimes don't. And if they're not used to that, like at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, we don't have a ton of large classes. They're used to the selling point that we have of small faculty to student ratio, right? So when you give them this different situation, you just got to do a little less. And so my little magic rule is the 20-minute rule. Never lecture in a row more than 20 minutes. Break up that 20 minutes when you're done. So in a 50-minute class or a 60-minute class, maybe 5 minutes at the beginning, getting to know you stuff, announcement stuff, 20 minutes of lecture, 10 minutes of small group activities, 10 minutes of discussing what every group came up with, and 5 minutes for questions or telling them what to know next time. So never going more than 20 minutes. It helps them like, ooh, we're going to change things. I'm not sitting here for 20 minutes, and it's really nice to do that. Another cool thing you could do in terms of lecturing less is make them have to be part of the course. It is hard to do presentations and stuff with 200 people. I know that. 100 people was a little rough, but I found a way in my course to make it where 5 people a day presented on something. It was a 3-hour-long class, so that's why it could happen that way. And we had 5 people come up, and they had an option. And I learned this in a peer collaboration workshop here on campus. So good stuff happening on this community. I learned to engage all of their different learning styles. So you had the option, if you wanted to write a paper, if that's your strength, you could, but you had to email it to me. It goes on Blackboard, everybody reads it. You could do a presentation, come up here and do it, or you could create a little documentary type film like the one we watched a while ago. Whatever your strength is, whatever it is that you want to do, you can do it, but you have to do it the day that your group goes or you go. that's what they were talking about. They knew if they weren't good speakers, they could write if they were good writers. And so either way, what ended up happening was there was a nice sprinkling of differences. So students heard it, they saw it, they read it, and so everybody in the room got it in a couple of different ways. And so that was kind of really cool, and it caused me to have to lecture less, which is great. Lecture better, that's just staying on your toes about, being engaged and dynamic and stuff like that. Sometimes we forget about the disclosure stuff or the real world examples or the videos or the technology, things that we can use, and remembering people's learning styles when we do that. That's all that's about. And number 5, engaging students in communication collaboration. Kind of touched on that, but any way that you can get them talking to you, talking to each other, collaborating and coming up with stuff. I like to do those little small group things. I give them a handout, they turn it in for participation points for that day or their attendance for that day, and they're solving a case or brainstorming a list of things. First day of public relations, I was like, come up with all the words that your group possibly can that are associated with PR. Stuff that people say, spin, manipulation, deception, relationships, whatever. Whoever has the longest list, you get 5 points, everybody else gets 3 tournament. And just tons and tons of, stuff on that paper. And then we wrote it all on the board and talked about it. So stuff like that gets them interested. And they contributed, they participated, they created those lists. So they get excited and like to hear about it. And sometimes it gets silly and fun, and that's great. Another thing too, you could do individual pop quizzes. Hey, we're going to have a pop quiz every once in a while, you don't know when. You give it to them individually, they get 5 minutes to do it, then they get to collaborate with a group, go through each other's answers, and then turn in one group quiz. And so they learned, they discussed it, they collaborated, they communicated, they know each other. You could require people to get into different groups, so eventually everybody met everybody in the class. There's a lot of things like that that are really fun to do. Using their weapon against them. Their weapon is technology, and I call it a weapon because it arms them in so many ways. It arms them with knowledge, it arms them with finding good relationships and keeping in touch with people, and sometimes it arms them against you because you're standing in the front room and you're like, are you listening to me? Or are you playing with your stuff? So that poll site's a great example of, sure, you can text message. Come here, text message, Another thing I like to do is Google Moderator, which is you could post a question on Google Moderator the night before and people can discuss. It's kind of like a discussion board, but everybody contributes to it. I can read it and then come in and say, here are some things that you guys said on Google Moderator. Or you love Facebook? Cool. Find an example on your news feed of X and post it on Twitter, and we'll all follow each other on Twitter and read each other's posts, or getting them engaged in using those things for better. So they're not just Facebooking, they're Facebooking with a purpose. And then doing a little PR. I teach PR, so you gotta throw the PR in there. PR is all about creating a positive relationship with an organization and its public. So building a positive relationship between you and your students. So for me, a couple of ways that I think are really great is that feedback, two-way communication, asking them, what would you like us to do, or what are some things you're enjoying, some things you're not enjoying, and actually reading that and implementing that. I do that at least at the midterm. So you could take that this week and do it in your class and say, hey, what are some things you're really liking right now? What are some ideas you have for how I could get you all communicating with each other? Or what are some non-lecture ideas that you might have? And you'd be amazed how many cool teaching things they come up with. It might be something they did in another class that they really liked, but hey, you just got to learn that, right? So that's how I get a lot of feedback about that. One of the things that came up was they were like, we kind of hate PowerPoint. Could you do Prezi? This is a Prezi. So I was like, okay, I can do a Prezi, but you're going to have to show me how to do a Prezi. And then, it's easy. Go to Prezi.com, log in with your school address. It's free if you do that, and you can make your slides private. And they're like, and there's patterns. Like, you just pick how you want the thing to flow, or you can create your own. So I did this for the first time for today to show you guys, because that was something that came up this semester. So here's my Prezi. It transitions on its own. You can make things bigger and smaller. It's really cool, and for some reason they like it better than PowerPoint. It's a little more frilly and cool, and it was a lot easier and faster to create than PowerPoint. So I love it. I'm sold. But I learned something from them that I wouldn't have otherwise known. So actually listening. And then my other thing is a lot of students I did a study for my dissertation in doctoral school on hurtful messages that college students receive from their instructors. And a lot of those hurtful messages happened in large lecture classrooms. And it was a matter of embarrassing someone or calling someone out when they weren't prepared. And you just never know why that student wasn't prepared. We like to assume it's because they didn't read or whatever, but maybe they had a bad situation or a death in the family. You know, we're human. We all have things that come up in our own lives. I can think of a lot of times when I've had to go, I need to create this lecture real quick, real fast, you know, before class because X happened to me. Didn't mean I was a bad teacher or a bad person, just stuff happened. So a lot of that calling people out or critiquing them in front of the room. So to me, my thing is prepare before share. Always give them a second to collect their thoughts before you require them to share. Even if it's a matter of everybody take 2 minutes and then I'm going to randomly call on you and ask you to share what's on that paper. At least they don't feel like, you know, and a lot of that weird feeling is stage fright for them. You know, they just have anxiety about communicating. And decades of comm research shows that people have actually like stood on the top of the building wishing to kill themselves rather than giving a speech in front of people. So when you call them out like that and you're like, hey Lizzie, you know, I need to know blah, blah, blah. Wow, here's 200 people staring at Lizzie and, you know, she doesn't know or she's scared that it might not be the right idea. So giving them a minute to think, letting them talk to each other and then have them elect a group person to represent them. That they at least feel like, well, at least this group agrees with me. So, you know, I've got a club here. I'm okay. I'm not alone. And all of that kind of stuff helps quite a bit. So I want to open the floor for a second for questions and then have you guys do a quick group activity for me and then I'll be done because it's 12:40. So do you have any questions before I engage you?